Can I admit something to you, Dave?
What?
I don't think I've ever seen it. At least
You're
not in
kidding.
its entirety.
Well, I mean, as the father of a male child, you have failed. You just got disqualified from dad school because if a dad hasn't shown his kid Smokey and the Bandit, there's something wrong with said dad.
Wow.
David, today's query.
All right. Hit me with it, Dave.
Who's your favorite Star Wars character?
I mean, I don't see how anybody could have an answer other than Chewbacca.
You know, I do love Chewbacca, but I thought long and hard about this one, and I'm having a tough time with it, but I'm going to go with Obi-Wan.
All right. All right. Well, we're off and running then with Stupid Gen X Tricks, the show for people who used to be cool. What is this podcast anyway, Dave?
Well, David, this is the show where you and I, two geezers who once were bratty kids working on the Clinton campaign and managed to get to the White House under cover of night to help govern the country. Now we are just little wisps of memory in that land, and we're taking a break from the heaviness of that world and just looking at the fun and history of the culture we grew up in, Gen X, and how it helped us become the people we are and our generation to go on to the things we are doing today. And this whole show is just a little bit of a reflection on
well,
that.
Right you are, Dave. And today we're continuing on our every other episode course of taking 1 year at a time from those growing up years. We'll get into the later years as we go chronologically, which is, I think, how time works. But we're just hammering out everything we can think of about it. We started that process last time with the bicentennial year. So this time we're plowing ahead with 1977, which was really, I think, a big year in a lot of ways, and we'll get into it. But we'll start with going over some of the major events of the year. Then we'll look at what was happening in music, in movies, on TV, maybe in books if we're feeling smart, but I'm not feeling particularly smart, so maybe we won't do that. We'll wrap up with some wormholes. You, Dave, will show off your Saturday Night Fever dance moves, and then we'll end the show so people will have some time to recover before the next one.
Fantastic. Yes, that is true. And that may be all the dance moves you get. And I don't think anyone would call those moves. Those were more like electrical shocks.
There was movement. I mean, by the laws of physics, there was motion there. You were not perfectly still.
That is true. That is true. So, well, we started off talking about Star Wars because that was such a huge thing from that year. So let's dwell on that for a second before we get into the other stuff. So do you remember going to see Star Wars?
I do. It's a really happy memory for me, I have to tell you. It is, somehow like the movie had launched and I guess there was a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement and a lot of hype. And my mother, who is usually immune to that sort of thing, it somehow came through to her enough that she took my brother and I think she may have even taken us out of school for the day, or maybe it was a day that we were off school anyway, and took us into New York City to go see it in one of like the big old movie palaces that still existed at that point. And it was a super cool thing to do. And I remember like it was always a big outing when we'd go in and we'd go to get to see go stop by and visit my dad in his office. And like, it was really neat and like very uncharacteristic of Mom to get into something like that. So it is a memory that my brother and I have talked about over several times as like something that was a highlight of childhood. But what about you? How did things go down in Michigan?
Well, that's great. Like, did you cosplay it at all? Did you have like little lightsabers?
No, I mean we didn't
masks?
like, because in those, like, I think it was soon enough after it had opened that we knew nothing other than this is supposed to be this really cool movie.
Yes, I'm. That sounds so nice. My mother should have talked to your mother and gained some inspiration because I continued on the long, painful track of cool things being withheld unless I could, pay my way and get on the bus and all that stuff. And so I didn't see it for quite a while. Everyone had seen it. I remember the counts were going up. Kids in class had seen it multiple times before I had seen it. I remember once there was a half-baked attempt. Maybe my dad took me out to the mall, and then there was a line. He's like, well, we're not waiting in that line. And so I think it was like a couple months before I saw it. It was just like, it was just cultural frustration. And like many things around pop culture of my youth, my friends all talking about it and me wondering what it really was because I couldn't see it when everyone else saw it. So very frustrating. But then I did get to see it. And of course I loved it. But I don't remember that day going in and the whole thing because I don't know why. I just don't remember. I loved it though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing about Star Wars that is fascinating to me as an adult now who loved it and still loves it, who's not a science fiction guy generally. The thing that I think made Star Wars work, at least the first two movies, I guess, which my wife would get mad at me if I called them the first two and not episodes 4 and 5. So episodes 4 and 5, who is a big science fiction person. You're so used to like science fiction, everything is like sleek and cool and the technology is amazing and perfect. And in Star Wars, it was really earthy. Right? Like it
was janky.
Yeah.
Things were janky, like the Millennium Falcon.
I mean, they get caught. Yeah, like the Millennium Falcon felt like a hunk of crap.
The droids were all falling over.
Yeah. And like they get caught in whatever that sewage sludge was, that like, there must be a place where the shit goes on a spaceship, but you never think about it. And that to me, and the fact that the characters, including Chewbacca, were kind of down on their heels, like sort of, rough human beings, gave it
Was Chewbacca a down on his heels human being?
He was a down on his heels rough Wookiee, right? I mean, like his fur was matted and he had the like janky bandolier and he was like, he was definitely not the prince of the Wookiees, I think, by any stretch of the imagination, unless their society is really, poor. Which it could be. I don't know.
Really adding to the knowledge of our audience here. It's like theorizing about Wookiee land and what it might have been like. I'm sure there's some like fan fiction that covers it.
I'm sure there's tons and tons of it.
Your wife might have written it. Who knows?
She probably hasn't written it, but she very well could have read it. So we'll ask when we get up there
during the break.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're about ready to go into what else that happened that year. But first, I'm going to use my Jedi mind tricks to instruct our audience that it is now time to like and subscribe and follow this podcast. Follow us on social media, including our semi-brand spanking new Substack newsletter that we hope is in existence when this airs.
And most importantly, really, please tell your friends and loved ones and neighbors and coworkers and food delivery people and the guy next to you in line at the coffee shop about the wonder and glory that is Stupid Gen X Tricks. Word of mouth is the best advertisement we can get, and we really appreciate you helping to spread the word.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll get into it.
Hey, you want this fixed before the party?
Sorry, honey. I just want my secret anti-perspirant.
Use mine. It's right there.
I never know what you're using.
So?
So, I know Secret Strong.
Secret Strong?
Yep, it really helps keep me dry.
Well, if it's that strong, let me try it.
Honey, Secret's for women. Smell.
It's pretty. But now who?
The plumber.
Secret. Strong enough for a man, but made for a woman.
1977. Here we go. It was,
I said, whoop.
It was an eventful year around the world. President Carter took office and did some big stuff, including establishing the Department of Energy, which included the establishment of government support for solar and other clean energy sources, which led to my job selling solar panels, and also the ending of my job selling solar panels via telemarketing.
I do not know this piece of your history.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if today's the day, or should I do it in 1985 when I had the job? It's like, this is hard.
Well, maybe
like,
after we do the Paperboys episode, we'll do the telemarketers episode, because I have some experience in that realm as well. So.
I suspect that would be a hot topic and would definitely go viral.
Yeah.
Yes, Tales from Telemarketing Lane. Okay, so yeah, and then of course Elvis died on the throne, appropriately enough, at the same time the Sex Pistols were releasing, or maybe not the same exact time, but the same year that the Sex Pistols released Nevermind the Bullocks after being dropped by a couple of record labels.
It was around the same time of year, I believe. Anyway, I know that Elvis was in like midsummer because I was at summer camp, my first summer of sleepaway camp, and I didn't really know who Elvis was, but the counselors were very upset, and I think that that's around when Nevermind the Bollocks ended up coming out too, which I certainly was not aware of as a 9-year-old. But
yeah. Well, there's a kind of symmetry there. And I'm sure that one or two essays have mentioned it, but I'm not the rock and roll writer. We'll have to get Mark Richardson back for that.
mm.
Well, what was it like from your perspective as a 9-year-old?
Yeah, so as a 9-year-old and more granularly or more specifically as a 9-year-old in New York, I mean, there were a few big events that I really remember vividly, that were local things that I think had national impact. I'm curious to hear your take on them. And there's a great Spike Lee movie about this troika of things.
Great movie.
Summer of
Great
Sam.
movie.
So one of them was the search for and eventual arrest of the son of Sam, the serial killer who claimed to be getting instructions from his neighbor's dog, and it was, I mean, I just remember people were talking about that, like adults were just talking about that constantly, and both as an object of fascination, but also as an object of fear, because it was this sense of random threat that could just happen, that permeated the air, and then it was sort of intensified that summer. There's a massive blackout in New York City that led to huge looting and riots. And again, just this sense of like disorder and the world is falling apart that really shaped a lot of people's views, I think, of life. And then,
yeah, that's a very foreign feeling these days, with everything feeling so stable, right?
Stable and safe and nothing to worry about here at all. And then funny, like he also in the movie touches on one of the things I remember best from that year too, which was the World Series, actually, between the Yankees and the Dodgers, two teams that I did not particularly care for, but that a lot of people remember that series as one of the greatest ever. And it was when Reggie Jackson, who was already a star even before he got to the Yankees, really broke out and became a star, and they made a candy bar after him. And, I just remember like all the kids going absolutely nuts about it. And
that wasn't just New York. I mean, that was East Lansing, Michigan. Everyone was freaking out about Reggie Jackson too.
Yeah. Were they? What about was Son of Sam something that people, I mean, you didn't feel directly threatened by it, but was it something that people knew about and talked about?
I think they did, but it was not in the ether the way it would have been in New York.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So,
also from that movie, there's a couple things that, like, that is just a great movie. I feel like it's one, I think in the pantheon of great Spike Lee movies, it's up there. People do know that it's one of his better movies, but it still doesn't feel like it gets its rightful place in film history. And I really think it's a brilliant bit of storytelling. It really captures the era and all the little like cultural quirks of it at the same time that it's telling this really incredible story around the killer and all of that. But the couple things that I love especially are the scene where there's two sisters, I think, or friends. They're helping each other get their jeans on, and they're using like a wrench to pull up the zipper because they're so tight, and that's the only way. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that scene, but I've definitely heard people like sort of that, who would have been teenagers then, like talking about that kind of thing as that was like a real thing. Like you were trying to get them as tight as possible, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Yeah, all right. So we talked about Star Wars, but let's get into the movies now. And what else?
No. Well, also my stuff around that era, I think, is it's I was 7, you were 9, so you were
Worldly. I was
it's
worldly,
still
Dave.
pretty. You were worldly, and you had a little bit better memory for things of that era than probably I, as a 7-year-old, would have. But it's all pretty foggy. But what Star Wars, of course, is the big one. Kiss was ever present. Kiss the band, and then also Pete's Dragon was a show on TV I was really excited about. And I can't remember what it was all about, but it was a thing, and everyone at school liked it too. But also, it was my first experience with the glories of high school recruiting battles. And in fact, in the birthday month of my 7th year on this basketball-shaped planet of ours, one local player had become a bit of the talk of the town. I see you shaking your head knowingly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe it's not him. Maybe there's some other mega famous, incredible basketball player who's from East Lansing, but I think it's probably.
There's no mega famous basketball player from East Lansing, but he had become a McDonald's All-American, was generating fevered interest from college coaches, had even been given a nickname, but he was from Lansing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
By the way, his mother considered his nickname sacrilegious, and but that did not deter Michigan, Indiana, UCLA, and Michigan State from recruiting him pretty hard, and he was considered the greatest player ever to come out of Michigan, even in real time. So, David, here's your pop quiz question. What's his name, and to which school did he commit?
I'm going to go way out on a limb here and guess that it is Irvin Johnson, and that he did end up at the Michigan State University.
Only school, the right school, the best school, the forces of good. That's right. Magic committed to Michigan State over that school down the road we shall not name. And that was a beautiful thing.
All right.
Okay, now we can get into movies.
All right, but
you want me to go to movies now?
That was a huge event of that. So was that the year that he committed and graduated? Was 77?
He committed to Michigan State 1 week to the day after my birthday. Yes.
Do you think
1977.
Do you think that's the two were connected in some sort of causal way?
Yes.
You wished.
Yes,
you probably wished when you blew out the candles, and that's what caused it.
I wish I could say I was that focused on it, but I probably wasn't. But I did know that it was a big thing. Everyone was talking about it. Where would magic go? And then he did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. The rest is history, as they say.
It is.
Also, history were the movies coming out that year.
Nicely segued there, Dave.
Oh, thank you. There are a few things I managed to cough out on the show that you didn't script previously, but they are few and far between. The real brilliance lies with you.
Oh, thank you.
So, yes. Okay, well, Smokey and the Bandit, right? Like, that was an amazing movie. It was on forever. It was awesome then. It remains awesome now. Although it is a little hard to think of Sally Field as a sex symbol, but she was like this cute thing back then. And of course, Burt Reynolds was so cool. And,
Can I admit something to you, Dave?
What?
I don't think I've ever seen it. At least
You're
not
kidding.
in its entirety. I'm sure I've seen like 5 or 10 minutes here or there on, when it's running on TV, but I don't think I have ever sat down and watched the whole movie. I don't think I saw it at the time, certainly. And, yeah.
Well, I mean, as the father of a male child, you have failed. You just got disqualified from dad school, because if a dad hasn't shown his kid Smokey and the Bandit, there's something wrong with said dad.
Wow.
So go find him now and watch it tonight. That is my advice to you.
Brilliant.
Get your dad like gold star back.
Well, he already drives too fast, so I don't know that we want to encourage that.
I don't think you're going to make this well, maybe for a day or so. Just let him watch it. Watch it together. It'll be a bonding moment.
All right.
Good Lord. Okay, and then speaking of fast cars and pretty girls, The Spy Who Loved Me was out that year. I saw that a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
And I remember asking, how, like, the female character in it, her name was Holly Goodhead,
Yeah.
which I don't think registered with
Yeah,
me
totally went over.
while watching
Totally
the
went
movie.
over me at the time. Yeah, that was my
Yeah,
first
and
James
then
Bond, certainly.
But I remember I owned the soundtrack. I listened to it. I'd sit there by the speakers in the living room and I'd look at the back and the pictures. And then, her character name appeared, I think, on the back of the album. And I remember my mom looking at the album cover and being like, oh. And I'm like, what, Mom? And she's like, oh, that name. And I'm like, well, what do you mean, Mom? She's like, oh, it's a little risque. I'm like, well, what does it mean? She's like, I'll tell you later. So I did not. I knew something was up with that name.
And did she tell you later, or
no, she did
okay.
not. But I'm sure someone in school did.
There you go.
So also, I guess Close Encounters was the same year as Star Wars.
It was,
is that right?
yeah.
That seems like it would have come after somehow, but I guess it didn't. And then, of course, Saturday Night Fever, which I was jamming to as we came on, and John Travolta and his dance moves that kids at school wished they could do, and some probably tried, but I can't remember anyone doing it particularly well. And then Eraserhead came out that year, which, of course, no 8-year-olds were watching Eraserhead, but as someone who was later had my haircut compared to Eraserhead, it did become a big part of the year in retrospect. And then one that has only recently come to light, in my mind anyway, is a movie by William Friedkin called Sorcerer, and that's now considered a classic. I don't have any recollection of it, and it gets a lot of retrospective respect from film nerds, and it was the film he followed French Connection and The Exorcist with. And so I still haven't seen it, but it's now on my list of movies to watch because it looks good. It's a bunch of like guys evidently who are coming from different parts of the world and have varying forms of trouble with the law, and they all come together in a South American country, and they have to do this daring trip with all this dynamite, and things go wrong. And it's supposed to be great, actually, even though it kind of bombed at the time and really hurt his career. I think it had a dumb name because it has nothing to do with sorcery. I think that's part of what hurt it.
That is certainly, you just never know with those things, like why something catches fire and why it doesn't. But two memories other than Star Wars of movies that I have strong recollections of seeing that year, from when I looked at the list, are both vaguely embarrassing, actually. Oh God, starring George Burns as God, which is, I think, in retrospect, pretty forgettable. And High Anxiety, which I think was my introduction into the world of Mel Brooks, who became a major figure in my childhood and honestly my adulthood and probably my old age when I get to old age too. And it's not one of his like big hits, but is a good classic movie. And the movie that leapt out at me when I was looking into this as sort of culturally interesting is Pumping Iron, which was the documentary about weightlifters, which I've seen excerpts of. I've never seen the whole thing, and I don't have any strong desire to, but it introduced the world to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, has just had one of the most fascinating arcs of like anybody in the world, I think. Starting out as this like complete meathead weightlifter, who was just sort of an object of, almost like carnival fascination for being such a freak show. And then, and then started out his acting career in roles where they didn't give him dialogue because, he was just like this stiff who, right. And then goes and becomes an actually like halfway decent actor, funny movies, massive movie star, and then governor, and then improbably enough, a good governor, after starting out as kind of a joke, and and now it just continues to be a sort of interesting person bridging the worlds of entertainment and politics. And it all started in 1977.
It's true. He was fascinating, and there's a overly hagiographic, is that how you say
I think it
word?
is, yeah.
documentary about him that's been on Netflix in the last year or two, like a 3-part
Oh, I didn't know
Walter
that.
life
Yeah.
story doc. And recognizing that it's got his approval and with all
Which
the
is
red
all of
flags
those
that
things now. Yeah.
all this, yeah. So it doesn't completely overlook some of his scandals, but it does tell the story of how he grew up, how he went on to his success. And it is absolutely amazing. And what you realize is he was no meathead at any point in his life.
Right.
He was smart from the get-go and very methodical, extremely methodical in how he did everything. So whether it was lifting weights or getting married, he had a plan.
Yeah.
There was always a plan. And
The plan on the marriage part hit a little bit of a snag, I think, but yeah.
Well, he got married. That was the plan.
Yeah.
The post-marriage behavior maybe was not as well thought out.
Right.
Anyway, well, all right, let's move on to music then.
Yeah.
Oh, but I will say I liked Oh God. That was a good movie. I think I saw it a couple times.
I mean, I
feel like
liked
might
it.
hold up.
I liked it when I was 9. I can't remember anything about it other than that I liked it when I was 9 and George Burns was God. So maybe it was good. I don't know.
My parents, I got one or both of them to join me for one screening, and they were surprised how much they liked it. So I feel like it could hold up.
Okay, maybe.
Also, I think didn't it introduce the world? Did it introduce the world to Christopher Cross and all your favorite yacht rock heroes?
Oh, I don't know. You
yes.
know more about this than I do, apparently.
I think that song, like something Moon in New York City. That was
wasn't that from
Christopher Cross
Wasn't that from
song.
Arthur?
Oh, I'm confusing Arthur and Oh God.
Yeah.
You're right. Arthur had Dudley Moore,
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that's why I'm
not then and
I'm
has
somehow
never been
confusing
an old
Dudley
Jewish
Moore
man with a cigar.
Somehow I had Dudley Moore and George Burns as the same person. There's the fog of time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all right, music. So the big hits of the year were your favorite, You Light Up My Life by Debbie Boone. And then the top performing albums were Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, Meatloaf, who his special place is in Rocky Horror Picture Show as far as I'm concerned. The aforementioned Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, Billy Joel's The Stranger, Electric Light Orchestra's Out of the Blue, Jackson Browne Running on Empty, Pink Floyd Animals. Really, that charted that high? I guess that's such an experimental record. That's odd that it was so high, but I guess was The Wall already out or had it not come out?
I think The Wall came after.
Man, how did Animals chart? Right? That's weird.
People were
anyway,
people
all
were
right.
taking a lot of drugs in the 70s, Dave. Maybe not 7 and 9-year-olds, but maybe 10 and 11-year-olds. I don't know, but
yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then Queen, News of the World. I don't even know what's on that record. And then Foreigner, which I was into, their self-titled first record, and then Elton John's Greatest Hits Volume 1.
Which I think I owned at the time, but I might be wrong about that. But I will say, things that I was not even remotely aware of, I don't think, as a 9-year-old, some of my absolute favorite records came from that year. I realized actually, I think really only when we started doing this show, that there's a whole bunch of music that I think of as 80s music, because I was listening to it in the 80s and the bands were still active and still making new music in the 80s, but that was really came from this period of the late 70s. And, Talking Heads 77 came out that year, maybe obviously because of the name. Elvis Costello's debut, My Aim Is True. Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers, the first Jam album, the first Sex Pistols album, which we've already talked about, the first Clash album, the first Ramones album, just all this amazing stuff that shifted the direction of
all
music.
Those bands that were on my poster from the last episode, right?
Yeah. It was all this incredibly fertile period of music kind of centered in New York and London. And stuff that held up and still holds up. I mean, I still listen to a couple of those albums, at least once a year, probably, and I will continue to for as long as I breathe air.
You're right. That was a great year. A lot of that music, like Talking Heads, yes, like the ones that were more new wavy, I liked. I never punk never really spoke to me in a significant way. And Elvis Costello, for some reason, and I have so many music head friends who like worship at the altar of Elvis Costello, but he's a little bit in like maybe he is to me what Duran Duran is to you. Like
this is sacrilege approaching your Springsteen skepticism, Dave. This is I don't even know what to do. Like, I can understand the punk thing because you're a Quaker and they're angry and violent and so whatever, but like Elvis Costello is the like
boring and monotonous.
If we get into this argument, it will take up this entire program. So let's just maybe leave this for our next
whiny.
Whiny, I would give you, but whiny in a good way.
He's witty. I'll give him that.
Leave this to our next argument show, maybe.
Okay. All right. We will we'll have it out over Elvis Costello. Yes.
What stands out to you from 77?
Well, so I Bee Gees and the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was great. It was great then. It's great now. There's a great documentary about the Bee Gees.
I saw that. I think it was also a Netflix one. And I was, I really felt like I gained a much better appreciation for them, certainly, than I had at the time when I was, just coming to the age of being able to be dismissive of things.
Yep. And then David Bowie came out with 2 records, Low and Heroes, and but they weren't really on my radar. But I'll come back to those. Foreigner struck a chord. I loved Cold as Ice. That was a great song. It still is. And then my friend Jeff Bergston, who I'm going to have to track down. I've only talked to him like once in 30 years, but Jeff was he was really obsessed with ABBA, and he got me into him too. I followed suit. I really liked Dancing Queen. But I want to come back to Bowie a little bit because those were 2 records that marked his first 2 of 3 collaborations with musical genius and Duran Duran influencer Brian Eno.
Ooh.
See the track of greatness there? It's over here. It's not in the land of Elvis Costello. And while the experimentation for me didn't really hit on those 2 records, like it's 2 records, but there's probably 1 record worth of material in my mind. But one of those tracks was Heroes, which is an all-time great song, like epic. I don't know if it would make my top 10 of all-time songs, but it might. It is up there. That is an incredible track. And but you keep talking about all these cool things you discovered in the 80s, but I know 1977 was really all about Muskrat Love for you. And do you want to talk at all about
it kind of was, yeah.
David, do we have you to thank for the rise of yacht rock?
Does that classify as yacht rock?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like 70s easy listening is pretty much yacht rock.
All right. We talked about this on our very first episode, but the first record I ever bought, which did that come out that year? So I guess that was the first year that I bought a record. Was by the Captain and Tennille. The Captain, who I've come to learn only recently, had a pretty serious career as a musician in the 60s. Like, he played with the Dead for a while, and he played, I can't remember who else with some other people. And then he married Tony Tennille, and they put out these bland little cover songs and had a TV show.
Do that to me one more time. That's gotta That's got a nice place in my heart. I like that song.
But they were catchy and they were fun. And as a young person who was learning to love music, it was a place to start.
It was just a lot catchier than Elvis Costello, wasn't it, David? That's why you graded to it. Your initial
to a
gravitation
9-year-old, maybe
to a catchy song.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But Elvis writes hooks, man. I mean, those early Elvis Costello records, among the many, many things that they have going on, are some serious catchy hooks. I mean, listen, like Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes. I'll just throw out there, like, I'm so flummoxed that I'm forgetting these things. But yeah. And I wouldn't expect this of you, Dave. I think highly of you, and you just bring yourself down, in my estimation, with this stuff.
Yes, well, it's the dark underbelly of my 80s youth.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's move on to the topic that dominated your thinking as a young boy, Dave, is television. And the top 3 highest rated shows of the year all ran back to back with each other on Tuesday nights on ABC, which I kind of vaguely remember. Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, and Three's Company, which made its
killer lineup.
Was the big debut of the year. And it was interesting to me when I looked at the list that Laverne and Shirley, which of course was a spinoff from Happy Days, came out on top. But we were all focused on teenagers in Milwaukee in the 1950s at that point. Some of the other notable debuts of the year were Love Boat, which was definitely a staple throughout then the middle school and early high school years.
Were we all in love with Julie? Wasn't Julie?
We were. Yeah. Well, I think probably at the point of 9-year-old, we were in love. At least I was with whatever her name was, the daughter of Captain Steubing, who, it should be pointed out, is played by one of the famous graduates of Pleasantville High School, Gavin MacLeod.
Well, I thought you had a little thing for her Villachez.
Come on,
admit it.
I did have a moment a few years ago. My wife and I went to the Bahamas, and we were staying in a very nice place that had this big balcony overlooking the bay coming in. And I just did walk out onto the balcony and just instinctively just go, "The plane, the plane." And I'm sure I was not the first one to ever do that. But the other thing I just wanted to call out from TV, and then we'll keep moving here. 2 debuts from that year that I think became really influential were Inside the NFL and This Week in Baseball, which, kind of paved the way for what sports broadcasting would we think of it now as just if you're into sports, you watch these highlight shows and some guy does a quick fire through 20 different games and has some witty patter and shows you some highlights. But that was a new innovation, I guess. And I definitely remember watching This Week in Baseball and Inside the NFL religiously.
Didn't they also go to This Week in Baseball if there was a rain delay? It had an air time.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, also use it as the fill-in.
I think that's probably right. Yeah, because it was syndicated. But yeah, I don't know. But anyway, we haven't talked yet about the big story of TV of the year, Dave, which was what?
Well, Fonzie jumping the shark, of course.
I think that was probably a couple of years later, wasn't it? I don't know.
No, I checked.
Oh, really?
I checked. He jumped the shark in 1977. And as our previous guest, cue the check out our earlier episode with Richard Gurman, one of our most interesting episodes, who was you tell him. David.
Well, he later became one of the key writers and producers of Married with Children, but at this stage he was a writer on the Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley television programs.
That's right. And he pointed out what I double-checked today in preparation for our episode, because we're thorough researchers, aren't we? And that was that Fonzie jumped the shark in year 5 of an 11-year series. So the idea that jumping the shark meant something was over was it's convenient and it's funny, but it's completely inaccurate.
Or it just meant
was nowhere
that they
near
kept
the end.
dragging the thing out and beating it to death for another 6 years after it was already
Yeah,
out
well,
of steam. But yeah,
good point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's both things. But I had very strict television limits of 3 hours a week, which I'm still bitter at my parents over. So I had to hide in the bushes at neighbors' houses or go to friends who were willing to let me come stare at their televisions. And actually, what I wanted to see, I would have liked to have seen Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley, but those were on in the evening, close to my overly early bedtime, sometimes past my bedtime because my parents sucked that way. But I do love my parents. I'm not that bitter, but it's fun to make fun of them. So I had no shot at seeing Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley in real time. What I was focused on were reruns. Like Brady Bunch,
yeah.
and which was started in 1969, Speed Racer, Johnny Quest, all the things that you could catch in reruns in the afternoons. That's what I was focused on. And I was thinking about it. It's not unlike kids today watching say Caillou, right? Like Caillou stopped, but that's still like a top streaming kids show.
Or even like with older kids, Friends, is a huge hit with like when my daughter was in middle school, like she and her friends watched like every episode of Friends. Really, like she's still she'll tell you, any plot point, any episode. And
how old was she? She was middle school. Did you watch it with her while she was watching?
No, I did not.
You realized how
there's a lot there's a lot of
it's
probably inappropriate material in there. Yes.
It's very sexual, that
Yes,
show.
it
Like when
is.
my daughter started watching, I was like,
Yeah.
wait, all your friends are watching this.
Yeah.
But hey, I was watching James Bond in when I was 7. So I mean,
And
hey,
having your mother
I guess-
instruct you about Holly Goodhead. Yes.
no, well,
Yeah.
she did her best to obscure it,
Yeah.
sort of.
All right.
Anyway, so but you're the serious one, David, and the real television event of the year was Roots. And what I remember about that was how thick the book was and the volume of uncomfortable references that popped up around it at school. But since you were a wizened 9-year-old at the time and way more bookish, you go ahead and explain.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I watched it at the time. I don't think my parents even watched it at the time, but it was this huge phenomenon. It was an 8-part mini series which ran on successive nights, about telling this grand sweeping story of the Black experience in America from slavery through to the civil rights era. And people definitely, I remember people talking about it a lot and not knowing that much about it. I did watch it a few years later. I think it was, they re-aired it, and it is very powerful. And I think it really was one of the first things, and maybe the first thing, to capture the attention of white America that portrayed Black history that way. And that really portrayed, the thing that stood out to me in memory about it is the way that it portrayed, the slaves as human beings. And particularly, it starts out with this character who is brought in chains from Africa, who is not just a caricature, but is like, a person with a personality and a point of view and an arc of his own. That was a really kind of radical way for white people, at least, to view the world.
It does sound powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, but I did not see it as a 7-year-old, nor have I seen it since. So maybe I need to watch it.
Yeah.
I wonder how it holds up.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see. But and it was really, the tail end of the TV monoculture, right? I mean, these were in the last couple of years before cable became a big thing and all the new channels started popping up. And, so again, when you look at the ratings,
I feel like in less than a decade, though. Like I was thinking, what was there was another movie probably while we were teenagers, the one about the
Day After.
The Day After. Like
Yeah.
that one had the same kind of cultural dominance for for a little while there. That
Yeah,
feel
I
like
mean, there
Roots
was still,
did.
but like even by then, I'm sure the numbers that watched that pale in comparison um,
Mhm.
to what Roots was getting. And you just don't have like one thing that can create a national conversation in the same way anymore. I mean, there's still opportunities to do that, but starting.
Well, like with this podcast, really. I mean, this podcast is driving the cultural conversation in shocking and amazing
People
ways.
are
And
arguing about
um,
Duran Duran everywhere.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and the Elvis Costello thing, I can feel it. Like I can feel the heat coming off of
Oh,
that
Dave,
conversation.
I think you're going to be testifying in front of Congress soon about that. But
Yes, like am I going to be defunded for my Elvis Costello hatred?
no, I think probably given who's in charge these days, you'll probably be rewarded. But I feel like Jamie Raskin's probably a big Elvis Costello guy. I could see him giving you a good once over about this.
Okay, well, I'm willing to roll the dice and see what my nastiness over that nerdy Brit. And it is a little odd that someone like you, who seems quite dismissive of British culture
I'm not
and
dismissive of British
Anglophiles.
culture. I just like making fun
Oh,
of Americans who use British terminology too much.
oh, I'm gonna have to go back to the tape room and see about that because it was a lot broader than that in previous episodes. But all right, well, while we're in the tape room, let's show our people what comes up when we go to break.
The great Armour hot dog controversy. Are Armour hot dogs really just for kids? Sure, kids love their juicy taste. But you see, Armour hot dogs have no cereals or fillers. That juicy meat flavor comes through for everyone.
Hey, put car 52 up there.
Armour hot dogs, the dog everyone loves to bite. Reach for quality, reach for the stars. Armour.
So that pretty much covers it, right? Did we leave anything important out, Dave?
We covered every last thing imaginable for the entire year, and everyone should use this in place of their encyclopedias.
You had some intense scientific thing you wanted to talk about, Dave. Should you go into that and make up for your bad mouthing of smart Elvis Costello?
Oh, there's nothing to make up for there. I feel like my cultural credits are growing with my Elvis Costello bad mouthing. Plus, I gather from you that I'll be getting some funding from the current administration over it. So that sounds just fine. Let's. No, but it is wormhole time, and what, pray tell, are wormholes, David?
So-
besides the poorly defined word we thought they were.
Wormholes, of course, is the moment of the podcast, Dave, when we wrap up or come close to wrapping up by each sharing some fact or observation or whatever that we want to talk about that we've stumbled across as we were going about our business, and we choose to share it with each other and with our listeners. So, Dave, play the music and then lead us off.
Okay, so my wormhole this week was inspired by the actor Morgan Spector, who plays the robber baron dude on the show The Gilded Age, which I started watching and I kind of lost interest.
Yeah,
but
I
maybe
wish it
should
was.
keep
It's
watching.
okay. I wish it was better, but he's good.
He is good. He's
Yeah.
interesting. And he got interviewed in the Times, and he was talking about various things that he likes. And he mentioned something which I completely agree with, is as the best mafia show ever. Well, that part I'm gonna pause on, but Gomorrah, the Italian show.
I don't know it.
It is amazing. And Gomorrah began as a book by a incredibly brave Italian journalist who grew up in Naples and wrote about
I was going to say
the
it
mob.
began as a book called Genesis. But yeah.
Yes, well, there's that. But so he wrote from the inside about, well, he wasn't a mobster, but he grew up in Naples, knew all these kids who went into the mob, knew their stories, wrote about it, and wrote this book that has had him in hiding ever since. He has an armed guard because he really told what went on in the modern mob. And it became, first it was a best-selling book and considered pretty revolutionary for his bravery in publishing it. Then it became a movie in Italy called Gomorrah. And then later it was adapted as a television show also called Gomorrah, with a main character named Ciro de Marzio. I'm sure that's a poor pronunciation. But he's just an incredibly fascinating character. And instead of being the head of the family, he's like a key underling who moves through that world with in surprising and fascinating ways. And it's just incredible. And so just thinking about whether it's the best mafia show ever, I would say absolutely it is in terms of realism. And then just in terms of television storytelling, it's such a different animal from Sopranos, but I love Sopranos so much that it's hard to make it second to Sopranos, but I would say they're a tie for first, with very different styles. But for our listeners and viewers who are resistant to subtitles, that's too bad, because you're missing out on one of the best shows ever made.
Or is it streamable?
It's switched around a little bit. I should have checked. I think it's on HBO Max or whatever they call it this week. And you could probably buy it also on Amazon, but it switches. And also there's been like one or even maybe two movies also that came out of the TV show. So there's a lot of content that came off of this, but yeah. Anyway, definitely worth a watch.
I think it is so odd, by the way, that like mafia fiction is this whole genre, and it is a whole huge genre. I mean, some of the best films of all time, some of the best TV of all time. It's just very weird that is the case. Anyway, my wormhole.
Wait, why do you say it's weird?
That it's like that we all now know so much about the world of this little criminal subculture that is, has had a big impact in society, but not, a massive one. Like, but we know the names, and we know what a consigliere is, and we know, the difference between a capo and whatever. It's a little bizarre.
Yeah. And I'm just staring at my phone trying to figure out. Yeah, it's on Max, and it's also on Hulu. It looks like, I guess Hulu Max, and it's on Amazon. So there are multiple places. That's for season 1. Some of the other seasons may be on other platforms, but I don't know. Like, it's always struck me how good, honest people get fascinated by crime as a topic in culture, whether it's, and nice people involved in functional marriages read stories about people having torrid affairs. Like, I feel like part of the purpose of culture is to allow us to pruriently look into the things that our better angels prevent us from, hopefully. And so I think it's just kind of like be part of the trouble without being the trouble.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that is, and look, the mafia, at least, I mean, I have no idea what the real life mafia is like, but the mafia, as it's always portrayed in culture, as this organization that combines that lawlessness and evil and pure acting out with this fairly rigid hierarchy and sense of order within it, is kind of inherently interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, one last thing on that thought. One way in which that I don't like that, like, I don't know if we hang this up just to mob or criminal life as portrayed on screen, but this whole idea of loyalty being above everything else. And, there's a saying, I forget, but they're like, snitches, something about snitches. I forget what the phrase is.
Snitches get stitches, Dave.
That's it. Snitches get stitches. Yes. So that feels like, it's almost like a truism among, like my son's crew and like kids, I think boys, especially, like the idea that, that's somehow bad it's worse to tell on someone who's doing something terrible than to let them get away with it. And I mean, obviously you don't want to be a tattletale, but there's something off about that thinking that I do think is informed by the that whole culture of sort of glorified criminality and the loyalty and that is so central to it. Something
I've noticed, and this might get into the Gen X thing a little bit, and if this may be going on too long, but it's an interesting conversation. In the political world that we came out of, right? The concept of loyalty, I feel like to people older than us, in the world of politics, like loyalty was, people just talk about that a lot as like, you gotta stick with your team, you gotta stick with your people, don't go questioning it. And that, and I feel like at least and that it has come back among younger generations, certainly on the Republican side with the fanatical devotion to the current president, but on our side too, in this sort of like, nobody in the progressive world can speak out against anybody else in the progressive world, even if you have a real disagreement, that I feel like our generation doesn't have that same strong sense of the primacy of that, and that we're better because of it. But it would be an interesting thing to explore. Anyway, I'm now going to do my wormhole, which just pales by comparison to this whole discussion. But it is You're
always disqualifying your wormholes before you deliver them. Come on now, David.
It is the proud parenting moment that I offered you on the last episode, and you chose something else instead, but that I promised to bring back. And that has some cultural relevance. Anyway, I was on a long road trip drive with my 17-year-old son, and we were comfortable enough that I was able to take the opportunity to introduce him to music that he didn't know, which is always a thrill and one that you only get to do every so often. And I put on the new Craig Finn album from the Hold Steady, which is good. Maybe not his best, but good. And it starts off great, actually, and then kind of fades, which was how both of us felt about it. He liked it, and one song came on that we both really didn't like, that was kind of this weird spoken word thing that he does. And I was reaching to hit the next button on my phone to put the next thing on. And he stops me and he's like, I really think the first time you listen to an album, even if you don't like a song, you have to listen to it all the way through and give them a chance. And I was just like, I've done something right. So maybe I messed up on the Smokey and the Bandit thing, but that seemed like a good moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that is a nice moment. I love those bonding musical moments with your kids. There's nothing better.
Yeah, which you don't get a lot of, or at least I don't get a lot of. But that was a good one.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. See, as always, you've undervalued your wormhole. But we all can see the greatness there.
Oh.
Okay, so that brings us to our final part of the episode, which is to preview the next episode so you can plan your listening time ahead of time. So what do we have, Dave?
So in just 14 days from the launch of this episode, people will be able to enjoy the first in what I hope, and I think we've talked about it a little bit, but I hope will be a series of intergenerational dialogues. We started off with an actual honest-to-God millennial human being as our guest, which was our friend, the podcast guru, Ariel Nissenblatt, who answered some of our questions and asked some of her own, and it was a fun discussion that has already taken place, is why I'm speaking of it in the past tense. And it will be a fun episode, so people should listen.
It is fun, and she I don't think it's giving too much away to say that she wanted to know what the word latchkey was all about. And
that did floor me a little bit. I have to say, like, that seemed like a pretty obvious concept, but
maybe she was just doing it for entertainment value, which was great too, because we about lost it just trying to stumble over ourselves to explain the whole thing.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that does it for now.
Good day, sir.
Good night and good luck.